Hi guys. So thank you for taking this lecture. And today we are going to look at cell. And so in this part of the lecture, I will focus on one major thing that's gonna lay the foundation for your future understanding about the electrophysiology. So let me share my screen. So we can talk about several things in cell. So here is a typical or an example of a human cell. So we can talk about a lot of different kind of things. Um, I assume since this is um, uh, physiology course, so I assume you learn some biology before, and you should kind of have some understanding about the organelles and the structure of a cell. So we all know that there's nucleus, there is endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, um, so many other things. Mitochondria, very important. So many other things. But today we are going to focus on just very simple thing, which is the cell membrane right here. So cell membrane control what can goes in, what can goes out. So cells need to get the oxygen. Cells need to deliver their metabolic waste, and so release those to release those out of the cell, so cell can maintain its health. And so this cell membrane become quite important to guard cells from outside world and also allow oxygen nutrients to go in and also control to deliver or secrete those metabolic waste or their protein. Some cells release their own proteins, like hormone, and so release those to the outside world, basically the body, so it can influence different parts of the body. So this is what we are going to focus on. So the title here is a cell membrane. So what do you need to know? The first thing you need to know is that cell membrane is mainly or primarily formed by phospholipid. So this is a picture of phospholipid right here, the phospholipid. And so phospholipid is a lipid. So we need to know, we learned about this in our earlier lecture, uh, or in our prior lecture. Um, Phospholipid is a lipid, and we know that lipid, there are several forms, but a group of the lipids are polymers. And so you can see that here, phospholipid is a polymer. What does it mean polymer? It means that it's a combination of many monomer. So lipids monomer is fatty acids. So you see that you have two fatty acids um, attached to the glycerol. It doesn't mention here, but basically attached together. And so you have basically two fatty acids combined together to form this phospholipid. And so cell membrane has a layer of the phospholipid plus another layer of phospholipid. This phospholipid has a glycerol side, which is hydrophilic. This side loves water. In contrast, it has the fatty acid, this is lipid. So lipid is hydrophobic, meaning that it doesn't like water. And so this lipid part will face another layer of the phospholipids with their lipid part. So this lipid part forming this environment, this layer basically is full of lipid stuff. And so this is lipid layer, this side is the water layer, And outside you have the water, inside you have the water. So this is perfect to separate two water compartment. So cell use this membrane to form its boundary, form its border to separate out inside of cell versus outside of cell. So that's the first thing you need to know. The major components of the cell membrane is the phospholipid. Now, cell membrane is a terminology to describe any membrane inside of the cell. So you can go back to here, you can see that you have the membrane forming the border, the boundary of the cell. You also have membrane to form the border or boundary of different organelles. So all of these membrane are called cell membrane, and they are all made by the same material, the phospholipid. When we, if we want to specific talk about the border of a cell, this cell membrane, we can also call it plasma membrane. So it's right here, plasma membrane. And so plasma membrane is the one to describe only the, the border of a cell, uh, the barrier, flexible barrier, because this lipid, flexible barrier of a cell. So we call this one, people call this one cell membrane, but you can also call it plasma membrane. The other membrane right here, you call it cell membrane because they are in the cell. So that's that. So that's the first thing you need to know. Cell membrane is lipid. The primary components of the cell membrane is lipid. So that's first thing. Second thing you need to know is that, okay, it's not that boring. It's not just lipid throughout the entire barrier. We have several other things there. So one thing that we need to know is, in addition to this lipid, we also have something which is called protein, which is protein. And there are different kind of function of the protein. You, you need to know that protein and the lipids are completely different category of large molecule. So lipids monomer is fatty acids. Protein's monomer is amino acids. So they are totally different things. So protein is also a polymer, is a combination of many amino acids. And then we fold them together. They need to be folded. They have its structure. Structure is important when we talk about protein. And so this protein, when cells produce it, they will anchor those in the membrane to serve different function. So here showing you that another picture you can see here, this is kind of like showing you how busy or how diverse it is in a cell membrane. So you have the phospholipid is a primary part, but in addition to phospholipid, you also have protein. So proteins can form this one look like a channel. So it's not completely blocked. If it's only the membrane, it's completely blocked, separate intracellular space versus extracellular space. So you have this channel to allow something to go through. You have something protein here. This doesn't look like channel. It work on in for other purpose. This is another channel again. You can have the protein to anchor on something. This one look like glucose because this is glucose, glucose, glucose. So we call it glyco. Glyco means protein. Glyco means sugar. Glycoprotein. So this protein allow glucose to attach to it. And also here you have protein to kind of uh, run through. So this one could be something like a receptor or something like a anchoring protein, allow something to attach to it. So membrane is not that boring. It's not just the phospholipid. They also have the many different kind of proteins uh, integrated inside of it. So that's that. Let's go back to here. This one showing different kind of the protein. You have the enzyme protein. to facilitate chemical reaction. You have the transporter, so this one will move uh, molecule from one side to the other or the other side to the other. You have the recognition protein, so cell and the cell will recognize each other because they have this marker. Phospholipids are all the same, but the protein can be different. Anchoring protein allows stuff to anchor on it, like on your wall, right? You have the hanger, so things can hang on it. Signal transduction, so when any signal attached to it, it will send that signal information to the cell. It's intercellular junction, two cells can bind together, hand in hand. That's why you feel you have the skin, right? Because skin cells are not loosely like detached from each other. They are bind together. So that form your skin. Yeah. So those are done by the membrane protein. So that's the second thing you need to know. In addition to lipid, we also have a protein. Protein give us a lot of um, uh, options for cell membrane to do several other things. So that's that. Now, with these in mind, so very simple. You only need to know two things. The primary structure is the phospholipid, but it's not just phospholipid. You also have protein. So with this in mind, we need to know that, okay, so how does a cell control molecules movement across the cell membrane? So here is a cell membrane. Just zoom out a little bit, like show you what is going on. Here is a cell membrane, and the things need to go in and go out. It's not like dead tissue, right? It's a living organism. So things can go in and go out, molecule go in and out. So how does a cell control what can go in, what can go out? So knowing that cell membrane is primary composed of the phospholipid. In addition, we have the proteins. So with that in mind, we know that molecule movements across cell membrane can be categorized into three types of the transport. The first one is called free diffusion. So that's this one here, free diffusion. So with this type of the transport, it doesn't require any protein. It just freely diffuse across the phospholipid. So you can see that this one, you have several molecules on one side, and then because it's more, so it will diffuse away, just like you drop you come into the room and you put perfume, right, on you. And so when you come in the room, your this fragment, this perfume will diffuse away from you to the entire room. So diffusion is this movement is driven by is moving from high concentration area to low concentration area. And so that's the tendency, just leaving out from this crowded space into more empty space. Yeah, so that's free diffusion. Um, and because you have one area that has high concentration, they will just diffuse across. And you may ask, wait a minute, these phospholipids, aren't they supposed to be the barrier, right? So if it's a barrier, then how could this molecule just pass through? Doesn't make sense, right? Like you have the wall, right? How can this thing pass through? The reason is this molecule, and you ask very good question. Why do they pass through? How can they pass through? And it's because they are not ordinary molecule. These molecules are tend to be lipid friendly. They love lipid. They actually don't like water, and so these molecules, lipid to them is nothing because they can get dissolved in the lipid. So they can dissolve in the lipid, they will easily pass through. So these molecule are not ordinary molecule. They are uh, rare, but they are important. They are limited amounts. They are limited type of the molecule, but they are important. So let's take a look at this molecule, and you need to know this molecule. They basically have four category. One is gases. So what gases can pass through? You need to know gas like O2, oxygen, CO2, uh, uh, the CO2 you breathe out. Uh, they are gases. And your cell need water. Sorry, your cell need oxygen. Your cell produce CO2. And so this is byproduct of a living thing. You breathe out CO2. Your cell also produce CO2. You need to oxygen. Your cell also need oxygen. So this is needed. And so fortunately, they do not like water. So you blow air into the water, they just bubbling out. So they don't get dissolved in water that much, right? They actually it's sad they love lipid more. So they will diffuse across. So gases diffuse across. They see this lipid like nothing. They just diffuse across. Another one is some lipid soluble vitamin. So there are only four type of vitamin that's lipid soluble. They are ADKE, and so you need to know that these can diffuse across the membrane. Another group is steroid hormone. So there are different kind of hormones, and one category, the hormones are actually made by cholesterol. So cholesterol is a lipid, and these steroid hormone can free diffuse across the membrane because they are lipid. Um, Typical steroid hormone are sex hormone like testosterone, estrogen. Those are steroid hormone. Steroid hormone because sometimes when we think about the steroid hormone, we consider that, like building up your body, building up your muscle, and that's what sex hormone do. They build your body. So, so that's those hormones. And so these three are known. They are lipid soluble, and they can freely diffuse across the cell membrane. Just go through. Yes. The last thing that also goes through is water. So water is not lipid soluble, but the water is kind of small. Besides, these lipids are not very rigid, right? So they are flexible. So your cells kind of like living things, so it will move. It will this membrane actually moving around because these are lipids, so they move around. When they move around, they can have some openings, allow water to go through. Although water can go through, but water goes through very slowly. So that's those are the primary thing can move across cell membrane freely. Yeah. So you need to know these four class of the molecule. You're gonna see the quiz question like which of the following molecule can freely diffuse across cell membrane? Yes. So that's O2, CO2, vitamin A, D, K, steroid hormone, and water. So this type of the transportation doesn't require anything. It just diffuse across the cell membrane. In addition, we can use proteins to allow another group of the molecule to diffuse across. And so proteins opens up a new option that things can go through without concerning their lipid solubility. So because when proteins anchor on the membrane, a type of the protein is called transporter or channels. So you can look at it like this is like straw, and straw anchor on it. And so you use straw like if you drink like your bubble tea, right? You poke it through. And so even though there's a membrane, but your straw allow water to pass through. So water soluble stuff will go through. And we call this one when water soluble stuff will go through, it still move from high concentration to low concentration. And because this and so it's a diffusion from high concentration area to low concentration area because this diffusion depends on or require a protein, a channel. We call this type of diffusion facilitated diffusion. It's a diffusion, but it's facilitated. It requires something to allow it happen through channels. Yes. So what are those? These are water soluble stuff. So you can imagine anything that in your kitchen, right? Or in your room, like everything you can mix them inside of the water. Those are water soluble stuff. You cannot mix oil in the water, right? You cannot blow the air in the water and trying to mix it, right? But what else can you mix in the water? You can mix sugar in the water. You put the tape sugar in the water, mix them, so it can be dissolved. So sugar is a thing, is water soluble. You can mix salt in water. So salt is a NaCl. So all these ions, sodium, potassium, calcium, those ions are mixed in the water, can be mixed in the water. So those are the water soluble. Glucose, sugars, those are water soluble. And these will use this type of the transportation to transport or to move across the cell membrane. Yeah. So that's the second type, facilitated diffusion. Which of the following molecule uh, move across cell membrane using facilitated diffusion? If that's a question, you should know those are the water soluble stuff like ions, salts, sugars, glucose, etc. Yeah, so that's that. The third type of the so here showing you that channel again. All right, so let's look at the channel. Here we have the channel. So this is channel. It allows the molecule to diffuse across. We sometimes call this channel an ion channel, not always, but we if this allows the ion to go through, we call it an ion channel. Yeah. So so or a glucose. We sometimes call it glucose transporter. So that's that. Now these channels um has different like flavor. So basically, you can have the channel that is always open. You can also have this channel that is gated. And so we can have the always open channel, or we can have a gated channel. By the way, when we have a channel in the membrane, usually this channel uh, select what type of the molecule can go through. So it's not open to everybody. We a specific type like sodium channel will allow sodium to go through. Potassium channel will allow potassium to go through because their channel size is has its limitation. Some molecule is too big, some molecule has too much of the charge. So like calcium channel calcium, you have 2 plus, so it's different charge. And so different channel will select different molecule to let them diffuse through. Yeah. But this channel can be always open, or it could be gated. And so we have different kind of the flavor. So we can have a non-gated channels. It's always open, like that, always open. It could be gated channel. It could be yeah, gated. Now with the gated channel, uh, it's closed until something happens. So you got to have a key to open it. It's not always open. You have to apply a key. Now, what are the keys? There are 3 types of the keys. This mechanical should be underneath that. So 3 types of keys. One is a ligand gated. Ligand means chemical. So you need to have that chemicals to bind on it. Then it can open it. A lot of these chemical ligand gated channels um, is how our body control our organs, like insulin. Insulin can bind on a insulin receptor, and then it opens up the glucose transporter. So that is insulin dependent or insulin gated glucose transporter. We also have later we can talk about like acetylcholine. Acetylcholine will bind on the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. I think we talked about that in our nervous system. And so that is acetylcholine is chemical, binds on it, opens up, allows sodiums to go through, Na plus to go through. So that's ligand gated. Another type of the gated channel is a voltage gated. Let me drink water a little bit. So voltage gated is that in this membrane, if this membrane potential change or the the charge on the membrane change, then it opens it. Yeah, membrane potential. We later will talk about it in more detail. As for now, you just consider it's like charge on the membrane. Yeah. And the third thing is called mechanically gated channel. Basically, this is, very obvious, like you touch, right? When you touch, you sense it because you trigger that nerve system. So that nerve system will send signal to the brain. So you know that you touch something. And how do you know you touch something? Because that is a mechanical deformation to that cell membrane. And so it will open up the uh, channel, allow ion to go through, and that deliver the signal to through your nervous system and then to your brain. So that's the mechanical gated. So there are different kind of the channels. Yeah. So here showing you that different type of channels. You have the ligand gated, receptor binds on it, then it opens. Neurotransmitter binds on it, then it opens. If there is no binding, then it's closed. Mechanical gated, you apply the pressure to your cell membrane, then you open. If there is no pressure, then it closed. Always open channel, like it's always open. It's non-gated. We have voltage gated, and so basically it's a charge in the membrane. So with the charge membrane change, it open. If there's no charge, then it closed. So there are many ways that we can gate this channel, or there are different variety of this channel that could be either gated or non-gated. So that's the second type of the molecular movement is facilitated diffusion. The third type is by a pump. So you can imagine that now in the membrane, you can apply a pump, and that pump will basically keep on pumping things from one side to the other side. And so it doesn't require diffusion. Diffusion can only move from high concentration to low concentration. With the pump, you can move things from low concentration to high concentration. Yeah. So you can keep on pumping. In our cell, this pump require energy, just like your pump require electricity. In our cell, the electricity or the energy come from ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the energy source for our cell, so it will pump it. So this is, and then with this pump, this type of the molecular movement is called active transport. It will pump the molecule from low concentration to high concentration. So that's that. Three type three types of the molecule transport. Free diffusion, facilitated diffusion, but it's still diffusion. The third one is active transport. The first one doesn't require any protein. It will diffuse across a cell membrane. The second two type, the facilitated diffusion and the active transport, require protein. So let me show here. Free diffusion just diffuse across. Facilitated diffusion require protein, and it allow the water soluble stuff go through. The active transport require protein. It will pump the molecule to go through. These two doesn't require energy. We call it passive transport. It's not active transport. This one is active transport. So that's that. I want to give you an example of this active transport. We have four class of the molecule do free diffusion. They are gases, vitamin A, D, K, E, stereosomal, and water. For facility diffusion, they are water-soluble stuff. As for here, active transport, we only talk about one type. And go back to here. One type. By the way, ATP is synthesized or produced by mitochondria. That's you need to know. Mitochondria is in a cell, so that's very important. In the cell, this is the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria, right here, mitochondria. You know. So mitochondria produce the ATP. The quiz question will be, which of the following organelles produce ATP? You need to know that's mitochondria. All right. So I want to tell you that there is only one, we are only talk about one type of the active transport. There are many, but we will only focus on one, which is the sodium potassium pump. So this is the only thing that you need to know in this lecture. Only one pump that you need to remember in this lecture, that's sodium potassium pump. Because this is universally present. Every different cell, whether that's your skin cell, your blood cells, your nerve cells, your muscle cells, your organ cells, all of your human cells, all of your cells has this sodium potassium pump. So what is it? First, it requires ATP. That's why your cell need to produce the ATP. And that's why your mitochondria is important. You need to eat. Pyruvate come from the glucose, go through the TCA cycle, and then produce ATP. You also need oxygen. You will breathe out CO2. Yeah, so all are in here. Um, so that's that. So this pump need ATP. The second thing is that what does it do? It's a sodium potassium pump. So it pump sodium and potassium. What specifically does it do? For each ATP, for each energy that it collect, this pump collect, it will pump 3 sodiums out of cell and 2 potassium into the cell. You need to remember this number because they are important. 3 sodiums out, 2 potassium in. So let's take a look. It's right here. So for each energy, for each ATP, for each energy that this pump receive, it will, so this is outside cell, this is inside cell. It will pump 3 sodiums out right here. Let me highlight it. Let me highlight it. Tool. Do I have tool? Right here. Pencil tool. 3 sodium out right here. Outside of cell. 3 sodiums out. It pump 3 sodiums out. It pump 2 potassium inside of the cell. Right here. Inside of cell. So that's that. 3 sodiums out. 2 potassium. Because I'm going to ask you these questions. Which of the following describe the action of a sodium potassium pump? You need to know that it pumps 3 sodiums out of cell and it pumps 2 potassium into the cell. So that's that. All right. So this one summarize the molecule movement across a cell membrane, and these molecule movements across cell membrane determine membrane permeability. So it's not like wall, like physical wall, nothing go through. It's allowed lipid soluble stuff to go through free diffusion. It allows water soluble stuff to go through facilitated diffusion. It can also do active transport. So that's that. All right, so that's conclude our this portion of the lecture. And let's take a break, and then we will move on to the next one in the next lecture.